Thank you, Eric, for the opportunity to speak to everyone here today. And Eric touched on a couple key points, and I'll just elaborate a little bit more. We are the single largest junior landholder up in the Golden Triangle up in northwestern BC. The only person up there that has any more land than us is Pretium, of course, who has successfully started up the Brucejack mine. Anyhow, let's progress here. Of course, the usual statements here. Again, of course, I'm a geologist by background, and many of my board members are as well too. Similar to some of the previous presenters, we like working in a place where not only have we had a lot of experience, but sort of a safe, stable jurisdiction. And certainly over the last 5 years or so, during the downturn, we've been staking mineral claims and expanding blocks, and here we are today, certainly seeing all this renewed excitement in the Golden Triangle and really being one of the first juniors up there. In fact, myself started working there 30 years ago, was reminded that 1987, and so this last year was my 30th anniversary up there. Again, we've touched on these points here. One of the big milestones for us this year was successfully earning into our flagship project. This was a property that we'd optioned off some friends of ours in a company called Snip Gold back in 2013. Snip Gold was taken over by Seabridge, who became our new joint venture partner. Many people over the last few years, of course, during all the challenges and things, had said, you guys are great geologists and you're nice guys, but boy, how are you ever going to come up with all that money to survive in this joint venture? And lo and behold, 4 years later, thanks to coverage from people like Eric and the market perking up last year, a little pat on our back to ourselves and our team. We've not only earned into 80% of the project, but successfully negotiated with Seabridge a path to 100%. And so this project that's more than 300 square kilometers alone on our KSP project, we are in 100% control of that. Not only was that not enough, at the same time I orchestrated a $7.3 million financing spearheaded by Goldcorp, who now is a 15% shareholder of Colorado's. And so not only on the corporate front were we advancing those things, keeping quite busy, but again, and I'll get into it here a little bit later, we'll show you all the work we've been doing on our exploration projects. And incidentally, the top banner there is a nice piece of visible drill core that we announced last week with over 4,000 grams per ton. I think it came out to about 130 ounces per ton gold. Yeah, so here's a number of our projects. I've kind of touched on them there. KSP being our flagship project that we now own 100%. North Rock, a porphyry discovery we made in 2013. We still think that has lots of legs. We just really stopped drilling it because back in 2013 and 2014, you were just getting no joy, even though we were putting out drill holes that were similar to some of the classic copper gold porphyries in BC. The market just didn't care. Kinniscan Castle, we at one time actually thought that was perhaps maybe our third or fourth ranked project, and I'll touch on this briefly at the end of my presentation. The one good thing about being one of the largest landholder and being one of the first companies up there to acquire ground is this particular piece of ground at Kinniscan Castle and North Rock just happens to be the only contiguous ground on the east and the west of GT Gold. And then just a bunch of our other projects. We also picked up one there in Nevada because one of the challenges is we've probably got about another month or two of drilling up north. And then, people always say, well, what are you going to do for the winter? And that's usually when I say, well, I'd like to take some well-deserved time off, thank you. But we've got a project in Nevada, and we drilled that back in February of this year, just to give us a bit more rounded out exploration full season. This is a slide that I put together of the area here. There's a few more people that have risen to prominence since I put this slide together. Some other companies have come to join the party, like Metallus and Garibaldi, Aben to the north at the northern end of this slide. But very much a few years ago, it was ourselves, Seabridge, and Pretium, of course. That block on the west side there in red of Colorado's, just to give you an idea of the scale, that's 65 kilometers long, that belt of those two properties that we now control 100% from essentially the old Grand Duke underground copper mine just outside of Stewart to almost all the way north up to the Snip mine. And sorry, I should have just touched on the fact that the colors in the background there were really just a compilation of gold in stream sediment samples. Just gives you an idea of what areas you should be focusing in on. And of course, there's a very prominent gold and soil anomaly in the east at KSM and Brucejack. There's also one in the west there where the Snip mine is that produced 1 million ounces, and the Johnny Mountain mine, and simplistically another blob, if you will, on our KSP property. When you zoom in a little bit more to just our KSP property, you know, it's nice to have the gold in the creeks, but you know, how do you get even a little bit more focused? Well, what you do is you do about 30,000 soil samples. Thankfully, those aren't all mine. Those are ones that have been collected over the last 30 and 40 years by other people. If you were to collect those 30,000 samples today, it'd probably be about $30 million to do that, right? Keep in mind, I bought this project for $500,000 and $10 million worth of work, and basically now have ownership of probably somewhere in the order of $50 to $100 million worth of historical work. Downturns can be good, sometimes for buying things at the right prices, right? And there's some of the spectacular gold imagery there that please come by our booth, and I'll be happy to let you handle that piece of core that runs 130 ounces per ton, but you'll certainly have to handle it carefully. We had quite a few significant intercepts from 2016, and I think Michael touched on the fact, 17 out of 22 drill holes hit. We had a program there in the INL area where we drilled 53 drill holes, and for us as geologists, 51 out of 53 of them hit at least some level of grade. So we like to say either we're really smart geologists or it's a very big system. Probably, hopefully, a combination of both. So there's not only what we recognize with sampling the entire drill core, which had never been done before. There was some work in the 80s where they drilled with small drill core and they only sampled where they thought there was mineralization. Well, one thing we certainly learned is although we see spectacular gold occasionally, like that one sample, there's also many intervals there where we would get 50 grams per ton and the geologist didn't recognize any visible gold. So you can't tell. So because they only sampled 40% of the drill core in the 80s, we've got, some areas that look promising, but we just use it as a guideline. This was from our news release we put out, I don't know, it was about a week ago or a few days ago. Here, where we highlighted this year's drilling, we've now drilled in phase 1, 40 drill holes for about 8,100 meters, of which 20 of them we released here a few days back. We really liked what we were seeing, and so did our partner Goldcorp, so we just basically rolled phase 1 into phase 2 and just kept on drilling. I think we're somewhere up and around in the order of 50 or 60 drill holes on the project so far this summer, of which 20 just came out. Eric talked about the release of results, and one of the challenges up north this year has been with all the exploration activity, the laboratories are somewhere in the order of about 5 weeks to 6 weeks to get assay results back because there's so many samples there. So with us, basically this next 20 round of 20 or 30 drill holes we've drilled, you can anticipate we'll probably have results, somewhere over the next month and maybe as much as 2 months away from now, depending on how much longer we keep drilling up there, which will probably be for the next 3 weeks or so. Some of the key things that we took away from this 20 drill hole results that we just put out, not only the spectacular 4,470 gram per ton hit in an area we're terming the VG zone, But interestingly, down in the valley bottom, we started out in an intrusion to try and figure out how it fit into things, and we got 0.43 grams gold and 0.11 copper over almost 200 meters. I personally worked for the Hunter Dickinson group here in town for about 5 years, and so that's where I got to cut my teeth on porphyries. And one of my advisors said, I know, Adam, you're not here looking for a porphyry, and you're certainly looking at the high grades, but if the Hunter Dickinson guys had an intercept like that, Bob Dickinson would probably be doing backflips down Howe Street with that kind of intercept. So, you know, that's a pretty significant intercept. The other thing that we did in this release was further up in an area called Lynell Ridge. Keep in mind the scale of things here. That field of view is probably about 3 kilometers from the top corner to the lower corner there. And so Lynell Ridge is about 500 meters away from the VG zone. And that drill hole there, although don't get me wrong, I really love sexy looking, as I think Eric termed it, gold porn or something was your word, Eric, with 130 ounces per ton. For myself and people like Gold Corp, I actually like the Lynell Ridge drill hole even better. It was not quite as high a result, but it still returned 2.6 meters of nearly an ounce per ton gold. But it was also, not only was that interesting to me, but it also sit in a broad interval where basically the drill hole at 102 meters entered mineralization and ended in mineralization 147 meters down the row at the end of the hole at 249. And if you just average that whole 147 meter intercept, albeit with a couple higher spikes like the one I mentioned, it still is over 2 grams gold over that kind of interval. That drill hole ended in 18 meters of almost 1 gram per ton gold. So as a geologist, and like I say, some of my friends at Gold Corp, you know, that certainly has a lot of large size potential. And we step back a little bit. This is truly a district. One of the things Gold Corp was talking about, I think, was really wanting to be involved with juniors or companies that had district scale potential. We have 100 square kilometers of altered and mineralized rocks with an area of course, improving infrastructure. We've really just been drilling in one area. It looks for now to be one of the better areas, of course, because that's where you start. But we've also got other zones where we started to put a few drill holes in, like West Khyber, and we're also going to drill some holes here with the support of Gold Corp in something we call Tammy. Keep in mind, Tammy is somewhere around 5 kilometers away from where we are right now. Just finish up here on this last slide here. As Eric has said, we have been busy, although we've been focused primarily on our KSP project, you know, in the order of drilling 50 or 60 drill holes, plus all that corporate work that we alluded to, taking out Seabridge out of our project, and also bringing in Gold Corp. Certainly hats off to our friends at GT Gold. Charlie Gregg is also a technical advisor to Colorado, and he's VPX at GT Gold, and him and Kevin have done a great job there, and really got a lot of people asking, hey Adam, thanks, I really love your KSP project, and I love the fact you have Gold Corp in, but I understand you got a project next to GT Gold, right? So yes, we do. We have 2 projects next to GT Gold, and in fact, both of those 2 claim blocks there at Kinniscan and North Rock were actually staked before GT Gold, and I remember thinking when one of the prospectors staked that ground, what the heck is he doing staking all that ground in the low country there? And lo and behold, it turned into this saddle discovery. So basically Colorado's North Rock property, the porphyry system is on the eastern end of Saddle, the GT Gold's Tatoga, and the Saddle property, Discovery is more on the western side. It is literally about 500 or 600 meters away from the border of our Kinniscan or Castle property. And being so busy here, I never even had a chance to bring it into the presentation, but I'd really like all of you to come by the booth, preferably not all at once, but essentially here, and I know you might not be able to see that from there, But this is the GT Gold soil anomaly off on this one side here, and literally here we are, hundreds of meters away to the west. I think as a geologist, one can draw that conclusions that there's something going on there, and as a result, although my guys have been really busy this year, I found a way to take some of my guys from KSP project, and currently I have an IP crew, a bunch of prospectors, a couple geologists, and a bunch of guys on the ground actively working there. And I'd like to say that, again, thanks to GT Gold guys, we've been cooperating, sharing helicopters, helping each other out up there, and looks like we're going to be working together on doing a joint airborne magnetometer survey, and really a lot more joy to come out of that part of the world here shortly, so stay tuned. Thank you.